Hi chess masters and future chess masters. This is National Master Coach Ba. Today we are going to learn about exploiting vulnerability. h5, e8 diagonal. One of the mistakes in the opening is moving the f pawn. Here's the first example. e4, e5, knight f3, and here black plays f6. This is a mistake because by playing f6, black is weakening his h5, e8 diagonal. Besides that, the f6 pawn right now is taking away the g8 knight's very nice pawn. In this position, even if white plays not the strongest bishop c4 move, black is going to have a problem with castling because of the weakness a2 g8 diagonal. But in this position, white has very nice sacrifice. Knight takes on e5. After black captures, white has very nice move queen h5. Notice queen is aiming at the king and the pawn on e5. Now the king is in check. There's two ways to protect against the check. It's g6 or king e7. Let's go over g6 first. If black plays g6, then white will capture pawn on e5, checking the king, also attacking unprotected rook on h8. Now, after black defends the king by blocking with one of the pieces, bishop, knight, or the queen, white will simply take the rook, and white is already winning the game with 4 extra points. Therefore, in this position, black will play king e7, trying to save the rook. But now white will capture on e5, checking the king. King goes to f7. In this position, white needs to bring more pieces, attack the king. He needs to develop bishop to c4, checking the king. The king has only one square, to g6. Notice by sacrificing knight, white managed to bring the black king out, and it's easier now to attack the king. Queen f5, the best move, checking the king. The king can't take, pawn is protecting. King goes to h6. That's the only square. Now, we need to develop new pieces to attack the king. And luckily we have our bishop on c1, and we just need to move pawn up, 1 square or 2 square, and attacking the king. In this position, black will play g5 to protect the king. Now, taking on g5 would be a mistake, since black has two defenders, the king and the queen. We need to have another attack. Therefore, white here plays very strong move h4. By playing h4, white is aiming at the pawn 3 times with pawn, queen, and bishop. And also, here white is trying to use his h1 rook. Black will go bishop e7, trying to protect g5 pawn, and now white will capture the pawn with pawn, and making it double check, attacking the king with rook and the pawn. And we know when it's double check, the only way to defend against the check is to moving the king away or capturing the piece with king. In this position, the only move for black is to move the king to g7. And now white will do mate in 1 by playing queen to f7. Checkmate. Let's see next example. e4, b6. This is Owen defense. The idea of this move is to develop black bishop to b7 and already attack one of the central pawns of white. White plays d4, trying to gain more space in the center. Bishop b7, developing bishop and aiming at the e4. Bishop d3, developing and defending pawn on e4. In this position, black is trying to use his bishop on this longest diagonal and attack on g2. Therefore, in this position, black plays very aggressive f5 move. But this is a mistake, because that again weakens h5, e8 diagonal. Now, in this position, if white will play queen h5 check, then black will simply play g6, defending king, and white has to move queen back and waste time. So, in this position, actually, white will just capture the pawn, ignoring the threat bishop takes g2. So, black will capture and attacking the rook. Looks like now white has a problem because the rook is trapped. There is no way to protect the rook. But again, the weakness of h5-e8 diagonal is more valuable here. So white will go queen h5, check. The only way to protect against the check to play g6. Now white will capture pawn on g6. In this position, if black will take the rook with bishop, then white will simply play pawn to g7 or capture the pawn, and that's going to be discovered check by queen and mate. So this is why in this position, black plays knight to f6, develops knight and attacks the queen. Now g7, it's not mate. Knight just will take the queen, and white just continue with capturing the rook and getting queen. This is still a good position for white, but in this position, white has very nice move. Pawn takes pawn, sacrificing queen. Because after knight will take, notice that's the only move to protect against the check. White will play bishop to g6 and checkmate. The last example. White plays d4, and black answers was f5. Black is already making f5 move, as we know, bad move. But here in this position, f5 in this position here in the beginning, f5 move is not a mistake. This is Dutch defense. Now white is going to play here bishop to g5. It's a very tricky move, trying to provoke black to play h6. Black plays h6, and white goes bishop to h4, inviting black to play g5 and trap the bishop. So black will play g5. That's a mistake. Bishop goes to g3. Now after black plays f4, white bishop is trapped. But because of the weakness of h5-e8 diagonal, white has very nice, very quiet move e3. After e3, white is opening up the queen towards the h5 square, trying to checkmate the king, and also attacking pawn on e3. If black pawn takes bishop, then white will do checkmate. If black will play knight f6, then in this position, before taking the pawn is already wins a pawn, but before doing so, white will continue with bishop d3, threatening mate on g6. After rook goes to g8, here white just simply take the pawn and wins material and have winning position. Thank you for watching.